Hello, I'm Sally-Ann Ashley. I'm a UK-based abstract artist, and I also run a course for artists and creatives called Creative Shift. Creative Shift is a 10-week program based on my own creative practice of navigating the shifts in my work. Each time I become stuck in the studio or frustrated, I now have a framework that I can apply each time my work evolves. I've now shared my framework with many artists and witnessed numerous shifts on both the personal and practical level. I hear artists talking about how free they feel in their work, how much more confident they feel, how courageous they are in the studio. So if you're wondering if creative shifts for you this year, I've interviewed some previous course members and asked them to share a little bit about their experience on the course and how it impacted their practice, in the hope that it'll answer some questions that you have. I hope you enjoy the videos, and if you have any questions, please contact me on the links below. Thank you. Today I'm chatting with Cathy Wagstaff. Cathy took Creative Shift earlier this year, and I've invited her here today to share a little bit about her experience, both on the course and how it's impacted her practice since. So hello, Cathy. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Sally-Ann. Nice to be here. Good to meet you in person again.
And you. So if we could just start by, if you could tell me a little bit about your creative practice and how long you've been creating for.
I've been creating with paint for just under 10 years now, but I tend to think of myself as creative all around. Since I was little, I've been sewing and knitting, and recently I've stopped compartmentalizing, and that was part of creating Creative Shift, actually. And I got my own room now, called a studio in my house. That's been a big deal, and that's been 2 or 3 years.
Wow, brilliant.
That has made a big difference, taking over that space that's just mine. Yes.
Okay, great. And what drew you to Creative Shift this year?
I wanted my art to change, and it was already beginning to change. Back in September 2022, I joined an in-person course once a week in Edinburgh. So that's about 2 hours drive from where I live. And it's called Professional Development. So it's working on our practice, but also incorporating the business aspect of being an artist. So it's really a course that helped me go from being a hobby artist to stepping into business art and showing to gallery. And at the end of that course, we were going to have, and we did have, a group show in Edinburgh. That was brilliant. But the way I painted before had a lot of things that I was beginning to feel were a bit formulaic, and I wanted to change that. And it started and it was happening, but I wasn't sure I was going in the right direction. And what cinched it for me for taking Creative Shift was there was an awful lot happening in my personal life as well, which I had no control over. And I thought I need some help, I need some guidance, as well as the in-person painting course I was taking. And it's been fantastic.
Oh, okay, amazing. So what was your experience of the course? How did it help you do what you wanted it to? And
yes, it did. And it's quite interesting because one thing you probably didn't think about, but because it's a business, it was actually really practical that it started in April. So I could pay you in the new financial year.
Oh, perfect.
As I'm self-employed, it was actually really helpful. But it was really helpful to have snippets every week of something new to consider. It worked really well for me that the videos were short. And so every Monday, I was up really early to make sure I had the time to really let it sink. So I'd listen to everything, sometimes more than once. I'd take notes. And as it turned out, my husband was in a hospital the whole of April. And so I carried on working and writing when I was visiting him. He was in a private room because of COVID. And so there was some annoying things, but some positive aspects. And taking the course actually helped me focus on that as well. And interestingly, there was a lot that came up as I was driving. You know what it's like, finding solutions to things when you're in the bath or the shower. And for me, a lot of things clicked from your course, from the other ones I've taken, other things I'd read. It just, like pieces of a puzzle that come together. But because of the questions you ask in Creative Shift.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes it's like that, isn't it? It's I often think we take a lot of information in, and we don't know how or when it's going to land and settle, and when we can fully like absorb something firstly, and the integration might come much later.
Yes, yeah.
And I think when we do this kind of introspective work and kind of take a look at all areas of our practice, I don't actually think all of them we can't take them all on all at once. And I think that's probably why the learnings of Creative Shift stay with us for so long, because they kind of are relevant at different times as to what we need. Have you found that?
Yes. And I took the course by myself again later. I think I started in September, and I closed my earlier notes and I started really from scratch. But I could see threads that were new, but that I'd started before, and it was really interesting to go through it again and to have the videos, and but also really good to have the deadline of when it stops, because otherwise you just rely on it being here all the time, and it's like, then it doesn't really happen.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that you went through it again. So yeah, it's good to have the access over a longer period, but like you say, probably not indefinitely, because then we'd never actually bring ourselves back to it.
Yes, exactly. And I thought it was great you had it finishing at Halloween, so that it is really clear. You can't go, I'll go until December, because then of course Christmas prep takes over your life anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So may I ask, did anything shift for you?
Yes, big time.
Okay.
I ended up driving a lot in April, and so because I live in the countryside, it was quite easy for me to look at the landscape when I was driving and go, well, there's nothing stopping me from actually stopping and taking pictures, or stopping a lay-by and do a quick sketch. And as I was doing that and listening to your audios, it clicked. It was just so obvious. It was there in all my photos that what I'm interested in is the light, and how having very soft edges in the sky, but contrasts of color. And my paintings that completely changed to incorporate that. And it's not just me saying it. It's my pals on that course, the mentor on that course was completely different. And something that had been holding me back was that, yeah, but I've seen other artists do that, and they've done it for such a long time, and they're brilliant. Why would I do it again? And so it's like, but because that's what I notice.
Yeah.
And that's me. It's my path. And these other contemporary painters, they don't say to themselves, oh, well, Turner did that, I'm not going to do it. So
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
It's a limit we put on ourselves, really. And that was part of the shift.
Okay. So that must have I don't know. I'm thinking that must have made you feel more confident, thinking that I can do this as well. I am doing this. It's just a realization.
It's. Do you remember ever traveling, backpacking, and you're carrying your rucksack all over the place? Well, it's like that, and then thinking, well, actually, I don't need that rucksack. I've got everything I need in my pockets. Yeah. It is really this. Gosh, I just felt so much lighter. When I started painting or going in the studio. It was really good.
Yeah. That's great. And that's so reassuring, isn't it?
Yes.
That you have everything you need. It's just ways of how we're going to access that, and how can you strengthen that part of yourself.
Yes.
And having these tools that I share, hopefully we can dip in at each time and sort of pull that out.
Yes, absolutely. And also this realization that when I finish a collection of work and I go to another, I don't have to start all over again. I can take snippets or things I set aside when I was working earlier, like maybe a few weeks ago, and explore them further. So it feels like a continuity,
yes,
but it's not the same, but it's not different. So it just simplified my art life so much, actually.
Yeah. What you describe feels like a really kind of gentle transition into new work. It doesn't have to be this whole new big thing that we set ourselves up for and wildly different from where we've been. And really, it can't be, because it's you, all your, the core of you is sort of, it comes through into like little fragments into the next one. So having that awareness, not only do we give ourselves a little roadmap to get to the next piece, but also it's just it's easier.
Yes.
It's so much easier. Like
I
you say, lighter.
Yes, it is. And I think to a certain extent, when we feel we have to reinvent the wheel, it's something external to us. Do we really go through that process for ourselves, or do we think we have to do it to please others, an audience, even if it's our own inner critic, but it's not necessary, really.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Does it have to be wildly different? This is the process of self-discovery. So we're only going another step each time. It's not these massive leaps, because they're sometimes quite uncomfortable as well. So it's just this more of a gentle process.
And I wondered if that was inherited from either art school or, I took a couple of years courses with Open College of the Arts. And I wondered, is it because each new module is something completely different? Is it something we've so completely absorbed in our own selves that we think that's how it is when you're a grown-up artist? But whereas in fact, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, it doesn't. You're right. Yes, I love that approach. So I know you were experiencing your personal situation was challenged in that time, but roughly how much time would you say that you spent on the course each week?
Yeah, that's a difficult one to answer, because I incorporated the course with what I was already doing. So we started in April, so I was already working on that body of work for that late June, early July group exhibition, and I was finishing the Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. So there were the morning pages. So because my schedule was really quite hectic, I thought the only way I can do what I really need to do is by getting up earlier. And that made a lot of people laugh, but I did get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I had my hour with coffee and the cat and writing. And that worked a lot with Creative Shift, the written exploration, if you like, that sort of weaved its way into my way of thinking and into painting. So, it's a difficult one to answer. But with the videos, at least watching the videos a couple of times each week, because of everything that was happening, I chose to not take part in the Facebook group. I did listen to one of the live calls, but after a half hour, I had to stop, because I thought there was just too much coming into my head. As interesting as it was, I thought I'm going to implode if I take all this in. Yeah. So that already cut out a few hours, but then everything I took in just percolated.
Okay. So you weren't part of the Facebook group at all, really? You didn't engage in it? Okay. And so how was that experience for you?
I think it worked really well for me. So I put in my diary every morning, and it was great because you had your reminders, but I put in my diary for every Monday morning to listen to the new lessons, and I'd listen to them again during the week. But it worked fine. I got a lot out of the group, out of the work you prepared. Not, they weren't homework, were they? You changed the word at one point.
I changed it halfway through because it was Karen and Lucy who supported me on it, and their feedback was homework felt a bit school-like, and people were feeling like maybe they had fallen behind if they hadn't done their homework, and I never want it to feel like that. And because I don't know if you remember me saying through the course, although I have to, because it's a course, we have to deliver it in weekly modules, but actually Creative Shift as a framework and as a structure isn't a linear process. So I didn't want it to feel so sort of, now you have to do this, now you have to do this, and adding homework to the bill felt a bit like that. So I think we changed it to guided reflections. So they were more like invitational, I don't want to say exercises, but I guess invitational kind of reflections. These were some prompts that you could take part in if you wanted to go a bit deeper with, that week's theme.
Yes. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I listened to the introduction several times. I also thought it was great you had 2 weeks of integration, because then that worked well with the schedule I had to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
And I felt carrying on my own without engaging meant that I wasn't distracted by too much that was already happening, but I got so much out of it. I think anyone who's concerned about Facebook or who doesn't have the time to take part really doesn't need to worry. You can get an awful lot out of it. I mean, I did. It was amazing. Yeah.
I think that's the good thing about Creative Shift, is because it's so about you as the person taking it. It's, it is a process that's designed. It's just all about you and your work and your questions, and trying to get to a place where we can navigate through these shifts in your practice and in your work. But I think it's a process that can be done with a community, so you can have that and all share that. But equally, like you've proved, it's something you can do on your own. It's kind of your own journey of discovery, if you just want to work through that by yourself. So it is quite versatile in that way. And because I'm not asking you to do practical things, like we don't have an exercise of mark making or an exercise of color mixing. So there's no kind of missing out, because we're not sharing things like that in the Facebook group or in the community group. So it doesn't, I think it's good in that way that you can work on it either individually or share with the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really felt like that.
Yeah. So how has the experience impacted your practice overall? And were there any, out of the sort of tools that I shared, were there any standout ones for you that are still useful?
I think it's made me realize especially when I took it a second time, that there was an element in the photos I was always taking that I just discarded, and that's roads or path or tracks, and so that's coming up in my next body of work, and that's because you showed us how to look at our photos differently. So it's not like looking outside of yourselves, or as useful as it is going to see other people's works in galleries or museums. It's really you. And so I've done the course twice now on my own, and twice I got something different. but that just feeds into the practice. It's not like, oh, I don't have space for that, so I'll ditch that. It just all comes in and becomes amalgamated.
Yes.
And that's really, it's really giving me a clear roadmap for the next body of work, for that next group exhibition in April 24. So even though I haven't actually started painting on the boards, it's there, it's in the sketches, and it's all in my research, but from your course, from Creative Shift.
Wow, that must make you feel quite confident that you've got like the roadmap. It's like you said earlier in the conversation, it just becomes easier because you have the information. And am I right in thinking, like, once you start thinking and seeing in this way, you can't go back. So now each time you get your photographs or your source reference or however you're bringing it together, these things they're apparent really quickly, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're apparent quickly. It's just easier to get in. And because I was quite interested in becoming looser in my work, but a bit differently, I can see that it's a lot easier to kind of abstract from reality. So I paint landscapes and they've become more and more abstract, but still landscape, but more a reflection of, which is what I want to do, a reflection of how I feel in the landscape. And so a path is no longer a path or a road that I'm really trying to pencil in, but it could just be a mark. And it's kind of like, why didn't I think of this before? It's obvious, but at the same time, it wasn't.
And I think Creative Shift gives you a way of thinking about your work on like, how can I say this? Like, we give ourselves a framework. So sometimes because we're so in the work and it can be overwhelming when we've got this and we've got this and we've got, everything else. And we sometimes can't see the wood for the trees, we can't see clearly. And I think by some of the tools that I share in Creative Shift, like the pause week, like, where you can just take that step back and really start looking at your work on a deeper level and identifying these points that you're pulling out, that you're telling us about, because then we just seem to be able to understand it on it's like we can become a little bit more objective.
Yeah. The pause week was really interesting, especially the second time round for me, because then it really hit me that, well, of course I need a pause. I can't just be go, go, go all the time. And it takes the worry out of, will I be able to work at the same pace?
Yes.
And even then, why do I need a pace to work? Questioning the way you got us to question everything. Just like I said just now, why do we need a pace? It's like, where does that come from? It's not my work, as in a 9-to-5 job where I must finish this before 4-to-5 or something. So this questioning and the pause, and to not worry about a pause. Pauses are natural, just like winter.
Yes. Yeah. So if there's somebody out there who's considering taking Creative Shift with me next year and they're not sure, what advice would you give to them?
I would say go for it, because the Creative Shift will happen with this course within your practice, but it also goes wider than that to your life as well. But quite naturally, you won't even notice until you pause and start looking back. The other thing I found really useful was that it helped me adapt to my changing circumstances. These were things out of my control. And so I chose to ditch social media for a time and not take part in the course. But I really got a lot out of the course anyway, in my creative practice and in my life. And I took the course a second time. So there was, again, no social media, no live code to listen to. And I got more out of it. So yes, it's definitely worth joining and not worry about social media or the time it takes to be in a Facebook group.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think what you describe is like the second time you did it, it's kind of you're at a different starting point because you've already been through the process once. So you're already thinking in different ways. You're already open to different things. You're already noticing how different elements play in your practice, probably noticing more about your materials. And, you know, so when we come back around again, you're different. And this is the way that we can start this like just deeper journey, this deeper relationship with our work, but all the time progressing.
Yes. Yeah. Because the first time I hit resistance at week 4, I can't remember what it is now, but it took me a while to go through it.
Yeah,
And the second time,
it's the materials and processes.
Materials.
Yeah, it's a
And
big
the
week.
second time was easy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, why? Why did I do that? It's just, you know, but it was quite interesting also to notice the resistance and go, okay, just pay attention there.
That's so interesting, Cathy, because yeah, it's like the content didn't change, but you changed, your approach changed, or your understanding was more open or deeper, or, you know, so it just shows you, doesn't it, how how things do work with us. Like we said, sorry, go on.
Did you say week 4 was about the materials?
Yeah, materials and processes.
Yeah, you see, that's when I started incorporating medium and flow medium and in my acrylic paint. And I had a complete wow revelation moment, and I carried that in my paintings, is that I finally found the playfulness of working with ink, but with acrylic paint. And that was the revolution in my painting style. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And that's just from the whole thing about the materials and processes is kind of having the you went through it, so all the questioning I ask about, you know, why do you use that, and what if you tried this, and da 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 da. So it's again the journey of self-discovery, but if you do go away and do the work like you did and have the exploration and start questioning the whys and the whats, and then you have this like amazing revelation.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Okay.
I hadn't put the two together, but it's like, oh yeah, that's why. And also this thing of, you know, I am worth using that product. It's okay to spend a tenner on a bottle of medium and just going with it. Because before that, I was mixing water and PVA, and I didn't always sound well.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine. So, well, I'm glad it gave you that confidence just to take that extra step. And well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out for me to chat with you today. I've loved hearing a bit more about your story there. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Pleasure.
Okay, take care. Bye, Cathy.
Yeah, bye now. Bye.
Bye.